Cyrenius came himself into Judea, which is now added to Syria, and to take an account of their substance, and to dispose of Archelaus' money. But the Jews, although at the beginning took the report of taxation badly, yet did they leave off opposition to it, when Joazar, the son of Boethus, the Boethus we were mentioning, the high priest, the one whose sister had married Herod, persuaded them to do this without opposing it. And then on the other side was Judas a Gaulonite, that's from Golan, a city whose name was Gamala, and we'll hear about Gamala in the war against Rome. If you read further, Josephus is supposed to defend it, on all its inhabitants commit suicide when the Romans finally take it, who together with someone called Sadduq, a Pharisee, and he's clearly not a Pharisee because he's not accommodating. It's I think we should have to read there Pharisee can also be a splitter away from, to split from. That's what the Hebrew root is. So I think here we have to see this use of Pharisee here, because Sadduq is the hero of the Dead Sea Scrolls language. And I think we're talking about a Dead Sea Scroll type priestly figure. And Josephus just uses that word to camouflage who he might be, because he's in no way Pharisaic. He was zealous to draw them to revolt. The Pharisees don't draw people to revolt. And the Pharisees are basically for the taxation. They believe in paying the taxation. That's properly presented in the New Testament when they ask Jesus, what about the taxation? And Jesus really doesn't answer. He says, oh, a taxation? I think there are several episodes about that, but one is he says, go to the Sea of Galilee, you'll find a fish. Take the fish out of the water, there'll be a coin in its mouth. So Jesus doesn't pay the temple tax or the taxation, the fish pays it for him. But in any case, he also says, look on whose picture is on the coin. And he says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and God's what is God's. Okay, that's been very famous in Western civilization, and we will come to it. But he also says, he who has ears, let him hear. In some people's ears, that could mean something quite different. The Zealot movement feels that God rules here, not Caesar. And therefore, everything is owing to God, nothing to Caesar. So render unto God's what is God's, and Caesar what is Caesar. Caesar gets nothing here, only God. So it depends on how you parse that. Sounds innocent on the outside, but it may have had a double meaning. I don't know if it did, and I don't even know if Jesus ever said it. But the point is, that's also the Pharisee general approach. That is, pay the secular authorities whatever is due them. And that's Paul's approach in Romans 13. And reserve for God whatever you think is due God. The Zealots push things a little further. In any case, this Sadduq and Judas, as we heard in the war, it was only Judas, started this Zealot movement. And they became zealous to draw the people to revolt and exhorted the nation to assert their liberty, as if this could produce happiness and security. So he goes on like that, how this brought upon us all the terrible ills and everything that happened to us, because the people heard them with pleasure, and all sorts of misfortunes sprang from these two men, and the nation was infected with this doctrine to an incredible extent. One violent war came upon us after another. There's a section in the New Testament when Jesus looks at the temple that all scholars, and we'll come to it, call the Little Apocalypse. Many of us think the Little Apocalypse is drawn, is drawn from this portion of the Antiquities, the speech. As Jesus predicts wars and people turning against people and all the things to come, which is very parallel to this. Now, that doesn't mean that's true. That's for you to evaluate if it's true. But you can't evaluate if it's true if you don't know both presentations. That's why it's important to, since you don't have this book, I'm reading it to you. He blames this group then, the Zealots, for all the trouble that's going to come. Let's see. All sorts of fortunes sprang from these men. The nations were infected with this doctrine to an incredible degree. What's he basically saying here? This is the Zealot mentality, or I think it's basically the messianic mentality, revolutionary messianism, maybe not pacifistic messianism, apocalyptic messianism, militant messianism, not Pax Romanum messianism, not turn the cheek messianism, not love your enemy messianism. So what we finally get in the end, and ultimately through Jesus' fall, is Pax Romanum messianism, love your enemy messianism. And I'm not sure how strong that ever was in Palestine. And as you see, it never did take over Palestine. It only took over the Roman Empire, as the way the Pax Romanum really wanted things to be. And it's now taken over the whole world, though the whole world is not, the whole Western world, is not really a very, very peaceful place, actually. I mean, no Western rulers, as we've said, have ever turned much cheek to anybody, nor have they loved their enemies to any great degree. Haven't seen any indications. So these Constantine and his successors, though nominally Christian, use this doctrine in the breach when it's convenient, but their personal behavior rarely evidences it. I just watched a movie last night on the beginning of the First World War, where the Christian monarchs of Europe, you know, the drop of a hat, were willing to commit hundreds of thousands, millions of men to certain doom. The Russian emperor was related to the German Kaiser, was related to the British king, and so on and so forth. And they just was related to the Austro-Hungarian emperor. And they just poured men in all the Christian nations like they were water, like it was nothing. So, I mean, where is this return good for evil, love your enemy mentality? It didn't exist among the upper echelons of the society to any extent. So, yeah, well, that's the weakness of it, yes. But I think, you know, to a large extent, they did also use it to control the masses. Now, that's, of course, is the Marxian theory of religion is the opiate of the masses. I don't really think religion is the opiate of the masses, because I don't think this apocalyptic messianism is opiate. It's just the opposite. It's very aggressive militancy. So some approaches are to calm the masses. Some approaches are to work the masses up. Certainly, jihadism is not to calm the masses. It's to work. It may be an opiate, but it certainly isn't a calming opiate. It's a militant opiate. Okay, now. I don't want to judge. I give you this for you to decide where these things should fit or shouldn't fit, and I don't want to be the final arbiter. You decide for yourself. One violent war came upon us after another. We lost all our friends, used to help our pains. In other words, the Romans were our friends. Josephus is being extremely sycophantic here.